There are the most brutal deaths in Demon Slayer. Kyojuro Rengoku. Rengoku's death wasn't Muzan's victory. It was humanity's reminder of hope. Up until this point in the story, most deaths were seen as tragic, helpless victims who never stood a chance. But Rengoku was different. His death wasn't just another loss. It was a warrior's death. Rengoku the Flame Hashira was one of the strongest swordsmen in the entire Demon Slayer Corps. We first meet him during the Mugen Train arc, where he joined Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke to take on Enmu, the demon who had fused himself with the train. Together they managed to defeat him, and for a moment, it feels like the danger had passed. That's when Akaza, Upper Moon 3, had made his entrance. At first, Rengoku held his ground, matching Akaza blow for blow. But little by little, the cuts and injuries he took started to add up. Eventually, Akaza landed a devastating strike, piercing straight through Rengoku's stomach. Even with such a fatal wound, Rengoku refused to back down. He attacked again, locking Akaza in place and going for his neck. His grip was so unyielding that Akaza, desperate to escape, had to tear off his own arms to break free. Rengoku's body couldn't hold on much longer, and he finally succumbed to his injuries. But he didn't die like the others. He stood his ground, fought to the very end, and forced one of the strongest demons alive to run. The Kamado Family. Killing the Kamado family might have been Muzan's biggest achievement, as well as his greatest mistake. The Kamados were just a family of coal burners that lived in the woods, far away from human civilization. Despite not having much wealth, they lived happily and in peace. However, all that changed when the Fire Nation Muzan attacked. The Kamado family couldn't even fight back. While Tanjiro was away in town for the night, Muzan showed up at their home and killed all of them. In his obsession to create a demon that could survive being in the sun, he injected all of them with his blood. Unfortunately, none of them could handle the demon blood and they all died. Except Nezuko, of course. It wasn't a quick death either. Usually transformation into a demon is extremely painful, even if it fails. And that's how Tanjiro found his entire family, dead from the failed attempt to turn them into demons. Jigoro Kuwajima. This single event turned Zenitsu's story from one of fear into one of vengeance. He was once the Thunder Hashira, the mentor who trained both Zenitsu and Kaigaku, but his end was a tragic one, and it all happened off-screen during the Hashira training arc, when he discovered that Kaigaku, his own student, had betrayed everything and turned into a demon. The shame was unbearable. In despair, he chose to commit seppuku, but what makes his death especially cruel is how it unfolded. Traditionally, someone would be there to finish the ritual, delivering a swift strike to end the suffering, but he was alone. After plunging the blade into himself, there was no one to cut off his head. He spent his final hours bleeding out, in severe pain. After hearing about his master's death, Zenitsu really changed. He started taking things much more seriously, and pushed himself harder than ever in training. And we all know what he did and how he did it in Infinity Castle. The Ubuyashiki and his family. Kage knew his life was ending, but he refused to die quietly. He was the 97th leader of the Demon Slayer Corps. From the outside, he was always calm, gentle, and deeply caring toward his soldiers. But behind that soft-spoken demeanor was a man who carried a burning hatred. His own life was slowly being eaten away by mysterious illness, a curse tied to Muzan's birth within the Ubuyashiki family. When Kage realized his time was running out, he decided he wouldn't just wait for his death. Instead, he set up a trap for Muzan himself. The only person he confided in was the Stone Hashira, Gyome. So when Muzan finally arrived at the Ubuyashiki estate, Kage greeted him with unsettling composure. He had no trace of fear or bloodlust, even managing to lull Muzan into a false sense of security during their conversation. And then when the moment was right, the entire house detonated into a massive explosion. Kage, along with most of his family, was killed instantly. The ultimate sacrifice. A leader who chose to end his life on his own terms, just to strike Muzan. Susamaru. If she was a little bit of a cheater and a scheming fraud, she would have been alive and kicking. Susamaru was also known as the Temari demon. She worked along with Yahaba, and both of them were tricked into believing they were members of the 12 Kizuki. She attacked the demon slayers along with Yahaba, but she didn't die in battle. When she was about to attack Nezuko, Tamayo interrupted her with her blood demon art and asked her about Muzan. Tamayo then called Muzan a coward because he manipulated the demons against each other. In a rage, Susamaru defended her master's honor, but accidentally said his name out loud, triggering her curse. Immediately, 3 demonic arms spawned from her body and completely crushed her, leaving behind only her eye and an arm. The sun rose shortly after that and destroyed what remained. Now, think about it. If this girl wasn't so blindly loyal to Muzan and had a life and ambition of her own, she would have been alive. Next up is Omitsu. Omitsu proved that no good deeds go unpunished with her death. She was a manager of Kyogoku House in Tokyo's red light district. Though we don't get to learn much about her since her role is brief, in her very first appearance, she comes face to face with Daki, completely unaware that she's a demon. Omitsu called her out for tormenting other girls, bullying them so badly that some even took their own lives. She even went as far as to pull a knife on Daki, demanding answers. But that's when Daki dropped the act. She revealed her true form, wrapped Omitsu up in her sashes, and lifted her high in the air before letting her fall. Compared to the drawn-out suffering of characters like Jigoro or the Kamado family, Omitsu's end was at least quick. Shinobu. This is probably the only death you will love and hate, because Shinobu is probably the only good character whose death was absolutely necessary and extremely painful for the fans. Being the insect Hashira, unlike the other Hashira, she didn't have the raw strength to wield a traditional Nichiren sword the way they did. Instead, she carved her own path, using a specially designed blade with a stinger tip, injecting lethal doses of poison into her targets. But Shinobu was also a brilliant healer. With unmatched skill in medicine, we saw this side of her clearly when she cured Zenitsu after he's poisoned during the spider demon encounter. Later during the Infinity Castle arc, Shinobu came face to face with one of the deadliest demons of all, Doma, upper rank 2. She found him in the middle of devouring his own female disciples. When he noticed her, he's almost cheerful to have another victim wander in. One terrified disciple begged Shinobu for help, but Doma snuffed out her life in an instant, just to prove how powerless her intervention was. The battle that followed was brutal. Shinobu used her speed and venom techniques, but Doma quickly adapted, resisting her poisons and overwhelming her. Eventually, he killed her and absorbed her into his body. On the surface, it looked like another devastating loss for the Demon Slayer Corps, but Shinobu had one final move hidden all along. Knowing she might not survive a fight with an upper rank, she had prepared in advance by slowly ingesting wisteria poison every day for over a year. By the time she faced Doma, her very body had become a living weapon, containing 37 kilograms worth of wisteria, nearly 700 times the lethal dose for a demon. The Temple Demon was the very first true man-eating demon that Tanjiro ever killed, but he technically didn't kill it at all. It had been lurking near a small roadside temple on the path to Mount Saigiri, preying on unsuspecting travelers. By the time Tanjiro arrived, drawn by the scent of blood, it was already too late. The demon was inside, feasting on 2 men it had just killed. The moment it noticed Tanjiro and Nezuko, it lashed out in fury, but before it could do any damage, Nezuko leapt forward and kicked his head clean off. That should have been the end of it. But this was Tanjiro's first real lesson in just how unnatural demons were. Even without his head, the demon's body kept attacking Nezuko, and the severed head sprouted arms and launched itself straight at Tanjiro. After a chaotic struggle, Tanjiro finally managed to pin the head to a tree with his axe. But when the moment came to finish the job, he hesitated, unable to bring himself to strike the final blow. In the end, he didn't have to. Dawn broke. Sunlight hit the demon, and its body and head flew away into ash. Tamayo. The first thing that I thought of her death was that I'm glad my ex wasn't like her. Tamayo was one of the rare demons who stood firmly against Muzan. Unlike most of his creations, she refused to hunt humans to survive. Instead, she lived by buying blood from willing donors. A brilliant doctor and researcher, she was also one of the oldest demons alive, predating even the 12 Kizuki. Over the centuries, she gained an incredible understanding of demon biology and transformation. And most importantly, she became the first demon to break free from Muzan's curse and control. By the time of the final battle, Tamayo's knowledge had turned into a weapon. In chapter 138, she revealed that she had created a powerful drug designed to specially weaken Muzan. When the chance came, she struck, successfully implanting the drug into his body. For a moment, it looked like she might have changed the course of the fight, but Muzan's strength was overwhelming. He retaliated, tearing her body apart and finally crushing her head. The lower 6th rank demons. This would make you rethink about how you look at your boss. After Rui's death, Muzan's fury was unmatched. In a fit of rage, he summoned all the lower-ranked demons to Infinity Castle. But instead of giving them orders, he delivered judgment. One by one, he slaughtered them, claiming he had lost all faith in the lower ranks. The massacre began with Kamanue, killed instantly for the simple mistake of thinking the wrong thought in Muzan's presence. Then came Mukago, who was executed after denying her fear of the demon slayers. Wakuraba tried to flee, but his attempt to escape only cost him his head. Finally, Rokuro begged for his life, even daring to ask for more blood, an act that sealed his fate. By the end, every lower rank was gone except for Enmu. Muzan spared him, and even granted him more of his blood. But Enmu's survival was only temporary. He would later meet his end during the Mugen Train arc. Now, imagine your boss not just firing you, but blacklisting you from ever working again. Genya. Even with half his head gone, he refused to stop fighting. The younger brother of the Wind Husher, Asanami, was one of the most unconventional members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Unlike most Demon Slayers, he couldn't use breathing techniques. Instead, he relied on a shotgun in battle, and a strange, terrifying ability that set him apart, consuming parts of a demon's body. Genya could temporarily gain powers adapting to the fight in ways no one else could. This unique ability shone during the battle against Kokushibo, upper rank 1. In the heat of the battle, Genya devoured a piece of Kokushibo's flesh katana, unlocking a bizarre and powerful blood demon art of his own. Vampiric trees. His shotgun transformed, firing flesh-like cartridges that sprouted into massive binding trees on impact. Even after sustaining horrific injuries, including losing part of his head, Genya didn't back down. Using his newfound ability, he managed to trap Kokushibo at a crucial moment, giving Gyomei and the others the opening they needed to bring the monster down. And if you think about it, his death is very similar to Erwin's. Both were facing an impossible enemy, and all they could do was put up a last desperate effort at the cost of their own lives.